This episode of Dorking Out is brought to you by the Intergalactic Bendai Syndrome Foundation. If you're a Vulcan over 200, have yourself checked.
And the letter B, because you can't spell bonitis without B. When you go to get insurance and you're rejected for having a pre-existing condition, your only regret will be having bonitis.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. SPM, safety contact.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's The Dorking Out Show with Christopher Allen Smith and Sonia Mansfield. Welcome to episode 46 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and the stories and culture that we love. That means movies and TV, books and podcasts, and everywhere else you find stories that interest you, or us, because this is our show. This is the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Saves Franchise Filmmaking Edition. With me today is my co-host, professional writer and author of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hey there.
Hello.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith, who was just nominated for another Emmy.
Yep, I'm going to take this scam for as far as it'll go.
So you're like a multi-Emmy Award nominated and Emmy Award winning filmmaker, nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith. That's the right. Title's just going to get longer and longer.
Just like my ego. I promise this isn't going to change me at all. 6 nominations and 2 wins. But who's counting? Anyway, sorry. I don't mean
In this week's show, we talk about Smith's Emmy nomination and we review the 15th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, with friend of the show and my better half, David Tracy from the Chaos Group. In our second segment, we talk about the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and answer the question, are franchise movies getting better? Smith has a chart. You'll see. And
I have proof. I have proof for what I'm about to assert.
He's done research, you guys.
That's right. Serious research.
A lot more than he usually does for this show.
Now, that segment might be the dorkiest segment of any segment we've ever had on Dorking Out, but you're going to have to wait until later in the show to find out precisely how much dorking out we are talking about.
Finally, we end our show with what we're dorking out about this week, which include the MTV Movie and TV Awards, which I didn't know was a thing, and Edge of Tomorrow, too. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get on with it. Topic 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Even though it's only the first week of May, the summer movie season has officially started with the release of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the 15th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which made $145 million this past weekend, pushing the Marvel Cinematic Universe past $11 billion.
Holy smokes.
I know. The misfits from the first Guardians of the Galaxy return, including Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, Zoe Saldana as Gamora, Dave Bautista? Is that right?
We can't say I'm all right.
Yeah, I won't. As Drax, and the voices of Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon and Vin Diesel as Baby Groot. Michael Rooker. Stars he comes back as Yondu, and we are introduced to a couple of new characters, including Mantis, who is, I believe they say she's an empath, who can feel people's emotions, played by an actress whose name I'm really going to mess up.
Do it.
I'll get the first name right. Klementieff?
Sure. I don't know.
And I'll get this one right. Ego the Celestial, played by National Treasure Kurt Russell. Joining us to talk about Guardians and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is David Tracy, who co-hosts my other podcast, Old Movies, New Beer, and works for Chaos Group, which creates the rendering software that is used in pretty much every TV show and movie you love, including Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, Doctor Strange, Rogue One, Deadpool, and of course, SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie.
That's right.
Thank you for joining us, David.
Yes.
Are you guys used in?
Probably we're in Guardians of the Galaxy. I would guess so. We're in the last one, and a lot of the same folk worked on it. So
now, did you guys work on the Academy Award-winning Jungle Book?
We did not.
You are such a jerk.
I'll give you a. So here's the thing. Chances are,
I'm sorry.
if it's Weta, so if it's like the Planet of the Apes movies or stuff like that, they're pretty entrenched in another pipeline. They use another renderer. So,
okay. Well, here.
No, it's always a tough one because in these crazy films, you have the main studios that are working on it, but then you have a lot of little VFX houses,
right? And they might use you.
So there is a possibility, but it's not anything that we have like confirmation. Official. Yeah, we don't have confirmation on it.
Oh, all right.
Well, there's some really awesome visual effects in this movie.
Just know that I will be asking you that exact same question.
About Jungle Book is an animated film, you stupid person. I mean, for crying out loud.
That's not going to stop me.
You
would think that would stop me, but that just encourages me.
Are you Baloo?
Yeah, sure. All right.
All right. Should we let our guests go first, or can I just jump in?
The show. Either way. I'll let you guys fight.
Okay, I want to say, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, is my favorite of the Marvel movies. I super love the Captain America movies. I really do. Especially, I really love the first one. But Guardians of the Galaxy is the one that I keep coming back to over and over. I find it very rewatchable. Whenever I see it's on, I start watching it and I got sucked in, and I super love it. I really, really, really like this movie. I thought it was really good, and I was not disappointed. I feel like it might be kind of this like really perfect summer movie. Like, I think it's very funny. It's got great visual effects, and it's very touching when it needs to be. And it earns these moments because they're characters that we care about, which I don't think we get a lot in these kind of big spectacle movies. I mean, this is a movie that makes me care about a character that only can say 3 words and an angry talking raccoon. So I think it's pretty impressive. And I do think it's really interesting that this movie that's so filled with special effects, it's a comic book movie, and you think it's going to be, I don't know, silly. And this movie, this one in particular, is telling the story of like kind of like daddy issues and sibling rivalry and abusive parents and loss and grief. And this is like serious stuff for like a really serious, like in a what should be a pretty silly comic book movie. I super love this movie. There.
All right.
Nebula returning.
Oh,
too.
yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Sister.
Sorry. Yes. And Nebula.
The sister issues. Yeah.
David, what'd you think of the movie?
Hated it. That was terrible. I just think this franchise, for whatever reason, of all the Marvel franchises, is just they're having the most fun with it, and they're having the most, and you can tell that they're having the most fun with it. They're not as beholden to the typical like the Marvel characters, and
I think.
You know what I mean? Like they have to.
Because I think these characters aren't as well known, so they're not. They don't have to deal with the expectation. Well, like Captain America would never do that.
That's not the Mandarin. That kind of stuff.
That's not the Mandarin. And the Captain America stuff, like those stories kind of took sort of a serious turn, and it's kind of good because he's kind of a Superman-ish sort of character anyway. And the Marvel science fiction universe is all sorts of wacky anyway. I mean, they even had a character named Machine Man that was from the 2001 Space Odyssey comic series, like an actual 2001 comic book.
And he was called Machine
And
Man.
he was Machine Man, and he had extendable arms. So, it's a pretty crazy universe when it goes to space anyway. And I just feel like this is a very, it might be the funnest science fiction franchise of almost any
I can
movie,
see that.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, the Star Trek ones are fun, but they try to get serious, and they're talking about V'ger and everything like that. And Star Wars gets crazy dark. Like, this is like a fun
I feel like this
sci-fi.
one is comedy first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just from the opening credits are great in this movie.
Yeah.
And I thought, how are you going to top? Like, I've been spoiled by the Deadpool opening credits. I thought were amazing, and I thought these credits were also amazing.
Yeah.
They're doing good with the opening credits in these movies.
Yeah, definitely.
But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's funny too because a lot of the things, like, it's not like you can't predict some of this stuff. It's not like you can't predict some of the characters are a little cookie cutter because it's a comic book movie, but you don't even mind it. Like, you're giving it a pass because you're just sitting there and you're enjoying it the whole time. And visually, it's beautiful. I mean, I think the way they make space look, the way the planet, like all those planets that are in a crazy row in the very beginning, that first establishing shot and everything, like, it's very, like, beautifully done renderings of the universe. And it's not like we haven't seen a gazillion planets on the big screen.
It opens up with, it's telling us it's the 1980s, and it shows us a young Kurt Russell.
Holy
that
cow.
That has to be the best. Like, what would be the term for that? Like, de-aging? De-aging. Like, that
Insane.
is the best one they've done so far. Like, that
really
look,
well
I was
done.
like, did they get, like, an old movie with Kurt Russell that he happened to be driving around with a woman, and, like, because it looks spot on. Like, it totally looks like a young Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem fake or like it doesn't seem like phony looking or animated, or it's really impressive.
Because they've done this a couple times. They've done it with Michael Douglas at the beginning of Ant-Man. They did it with
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War, I think. And I think they've done it one or two other times in the...
I remember when they did it with Jeff Bridges when they redid Tron.
Right, right.
That's the first time I remember it, really.
They did it in one of the X-Men movies they did it in the third X-Men movie, which it did not work. And I think they've been most successful in... not to get off on a special effects tangent. I think they're most successful in the Marvel series, but this is the first one where, as hard as I looked, it stood up. Like, it was crazy impressive. And in a weird way, it kind of makes the de-aging that they did, or the, synthetic actors that they did for Rogue One look not already dated.
Right.
This was just flawless in a very, very creepy way. In that
it is,
you could have Kurt Russell play a 25-year-old now.
I would like them to go ahead and do that, because I think Kurt Russell should be in every movie.
I agree. I'm actually very excited for the era where, like a Denzel Washington at 75 could play a Denzel Washington at 25 in a new movie.
I'm interested.
Yeah. So, and the only thing is...
What did you think of the movie?
Fences episode 1. You
that's
could be
right.
on Fences episode 1.
Well, it's funny. A couple things. I really did like it. I'm wondering now if I'm so in love with what Marvel is doing with their universe that this I think this happens to me once or twice throughout a summer, in that I get kind of toxic hype overload, where I'm so excited for a movie, I'm so keyed up that when I go, even if it's really good, I'm still a little bit let down. I'm feeling that a little bit here, but I think I was just too wrapped up in my own head, my own excitement. So it's kind of like, it's unfair to the movie.
Yeah, people will say, like, this one's better than the first one. And I'm like, for me, that could probably never happen because the first movie did it first.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I really like this movie. I think it's super fun.
Yes. Second,
I would definitely go back and see it again.
I want to go back to something that David said, in that this might be the most fun science fiction series going now. And as soon as he said that, it crystallized something. Not that this is a Star Wars review, but the Star Wars movies have essentially become a series about a family of serial killers.
True.
Do you realize that now? Or I kind of knew that, like, on balance. But now that I'm thinking about it,
people will. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Two out of the 3 generations probably murder kids. This is a family. This is like John Wayne Gacy in space. This is, which I really enjoy the Star Wars movies, but I'm starting to feel like, oh my God. And, especially set against this series, where the whole series seems to be set up to make the audience delighted, to make them feel happy, to show them beautiful, gorgeous things, to take them on crazy, nutty adventures, to get serious enough so you feel like you're seeing a movie that's about something, but not so serious that it kind of crushes you down with the weight of, heartache, or, like...
It earns all of its emotional moments through those characters.
Right.
We really care about these people. Like, we don't, or I said people, but there's a raccoon and like a talking tree or whatever. But like, we really care about these characters.
Yeah.
And I was very moved by several things in this movie, and I was kind of I went through this with the first one too, where I was surprisingly moved.
Yeah.
By things in the movie. A lot of the stuff with his mother and stuff like that. And this one too, like, there's just a lot of things, like, between the sisters, between Chris Pratt and Kurt Russell, even between like Drax and Mantis.
Yeah.
Like, their stuff is super funny, but also really sweet. And I was very touched by like some of their scenes together, and I was kind of surprised by that part, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that is the thing, is when you look at this compared to, one of the big comic book movies of last year, Batman versus Superman, is they both...
Well, that one was hilarious,
well,
right?
No, that's
I
the
didn't
thing.
see it, but I heard it was super funny.
They're both trying to take a comic book movie and have it and elevate it a little bit from the stereotypical, what people think of when they think of comic book movies. Have the movies be about something, have it be more than just punches and explosions and whatever. And it's amazing how delightful and fun and light this movie can be compared to that movie, when they're essentially trying to do the same thing. Take an art form that is, kind of looked down upon from a creative level by a lot of people, even though it shouldn't be, and bring it up to a big Hollywood treatment, and really have, legitimate, meaningful stories with true emotions that, you said it in your intro, the whole story of fathers and sons. And, we're not going to get too much into spoilers here, but, it is essentially the story of Chris Pratt's character kind of finding his father, and what that means, and what fathers mean to us, and what family means to us. And the
difference between a father and a dad.
Right, exactly. That was actually that there's a line in there on that subject that just clicked right in. It was like, oh, yeah, perfect. And yeah, no, this is, I was a little.
I think you and I had I had one complaint. Mm-hmm. And I actually see that you wrote it in the show notes.
Right.
It's the same complaint
so you're gonna steal
had.
it. No, okay, I understand.
No.
You're stealing. Yeah, no, you're stealing off my work. Okay, no, that's fine, Sonia. No, go ahead. You can do it.
No, I wrote it in my notes. You wrote it in the show notes. So I'll go ahead and let you go first, since you wrote it in the show notes.
Well, since I don't know exactly what you're talking about, why don't you just say it?
Okay. My only complaint is that they spend a lot of the movie apart. in this movie. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy are not together
Right.
in this movie. They are at the beginning. They are, finally around the end. But like for a lot of the movie, they're split up, and it's they are so fun when they're together.
Well, here's something that I have to admit.
They're never together in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Well,
here's where, now that I've given you a ration of Dookie for stealing up my notes, I have to admit that particular observation was from one of our favorite podcasts, Pop Culture Happy Hour, where they're talking about
I actually haven't listened to their episode yet because I didn't want it to taint my opinion.
Well, it tainted mine. It's, the first movies are usually about bringing the team together. Second movies or subsequent movies are usually about, well, we've got to really stress them. We've got to put them up against the wall and put them in peril. So it's usually about ripping the teams apart. When one of the things that's most fun when you get a team like that together is to watch them do their thing. Watch them all hang out in their spaceship going and doing stuff. It was, and I found with a lot of the kind of lesser movies, or you do see this as movie series usually go on, it's what's the thing that people like most about these movies or about our characters? Well, let's take that away from them and watch what they do. It's supposedly... Supposedly that's supposed to kind of heighten the peril where like Star Trek Beyond, you take away the Enterprise. Iron Man 3, you take away Iron Man suits. Dark Knight Rises, you take away Batman's everything about Batman and he just has to be Bruce Wayne. It's you take away the cool, fun stuff. And here they do kind of, for a good chunk of it, take away the team. And it's almost kind of like, we just got the team together. Can we just watch them do their thing for one movie?
Yeah, we get it at the beginning.
Exactly.
But I enjoy it so much that I want more of it.
Yes.
You do get a good amount of that in the X-Men movies. You do get kind of the coordinated.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of that's a kind of a core component of X-Men is they're always like practicing in the danger room and like working on like, was it the fastball special when Colossus throws Wolverine at someone? He would call it the fastball special. And like, so you do get to see a little more of that. And you did see that in the first Avengers movie. You saw some good kind of coordinated fighting there, but you're right. There isn't too much of that in this one. Only in kind of the beginning, but even then they're all kind of just separate attack stuff.
I really did like this a lot, but let me see what you guys think of this. It feels as though, because the audience I was watching it with was on, Thursday night, the day before it officially came out, and they were having a hell of a time through the first hour. They were loving it, laughing all over the place. There were a lot of lines I missed because they were laughing so much through the first two-thirds. For the first hour. Then for the next 45 minutes, it was surprisingly quiet. Almost like you could feel it kind of fishtail around for about 20 or 30 minutes as they were bouncing all over the place. And it was fun and it was interesting, but for me, I kind of felt the length, and there were a couple scenes where Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana were kind of having their Sam and Diane Cheers moment.
I don't know what Cheers is.
Exactly, which is great, but I did kind of feel like we're in that they're just going back and forth at each other, and it made the movie about 15 to 20 minutes too long for me.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, this could just be a stupid carp, and I guess it is kind of a stupid carp given that these are the kinds of movies this is, but it felt like every single character fell from a hugely high height, and nothing happened to any of them. They were, I began noticing, especially, they're fighting kind of in the middle of this planet, and they're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the planet, and they're fighting and fighting and fighting, and ships are crashing, and they're kicking each other off cliffs. Nothing happens. No one is hurt. It's like physics don't matter. It doesn't bother me as much with this movie because this gets so much right that lesser made comic book movies just kind of gloss over and don't care about. That I don't know. It did after a while feel like so much CG punching that
I didn't get that at all.
The peril kind of came out of it, even though the humor was there the whole time.
Did the peril come out of it for you, David?
No, but I didn't go into this thinking that any of them were going to die.
Right.
I wasn't. It's funny. You go to a superhero movie, and you don't expect to see. You're not going to see some of these big. You're not going to see these people die.
Right.
Yeah. No.
And you know
Star-Lord's not going to die.
That's true, but you'd like to for some peril. What was that?
Yeah, it's true. It's just, I guess, for whatever reason, like it didn't ruin my. I still had my suspension of disbelief going pretty strong, even though it's completely over the top. Anytime anybody jumps out of anything while there's an explosion going on behind them, it's kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, like in Sherlock, that just drove me nuts when they jump out the windows of the second story.
Right.
And there's a huge explosion.
Well, that's because they're
them.
supposed to be human beings. They're not superheroes.
Yeah, that's crazy ridiculous. But in here, it's like, well, it's a comic book movie. You're going to see that.
Yeah, and well, I think that's the thing is these are comic book movies, but Marvel is so spot on with the tone and not because usually, and Joel Schumacher was famous for this during his run on Batman. Is it's just a comic book movie, and what he's saying is who gives a crap, who really cares if it's dumb or schlocky or whatever, and Marvel is so careful at taking things seriously enough. But not too seriously. It's like they've hit this perfect pitch point that it makes things exciting and emotional and meaningful while not just becoming, Fast and Furious in space or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But
which it could totally do because it has Vin Diesel.
It could. That's right.
It's his best acting.
It is his best acting. He is better heard than seen.
Well, that's true. And if you want to list all his movies, all of his best movies is him doing voiceover work.
There you go.
Childlike monsters or robots or something.
Yeah.
What do you guys?
Can I say two more things?
Yeah. Say two more things.
I do want to say, I think Michael Rooker was really, really great. Like, he's one of those actors who I feel like we take for granted. Mm-hmm. Like, when he shows up, you're like, oh, cool, that guy. Mm-hmm. Like, he's really great in this movie. And it was nice to see, kind of some of the characters from the first movie that maybe you weren't expecting to see in the second movie, kind of fighting alongside.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil things by saying, who or, how that happens or any of that. But I really like that. And I want to say, I really like Zoe Saldana. Mm-hmm. I really like her as Gamora. I really like her as an actress, and I would really like to see her in a movie where she's not blue or green.
Why?
Because I think she's really good, and I'd like to see her in something else.
She's not in blue or green in Star Trek.
That's true.
That is true. I
guess more movies where she's not blue or green.
That's right.
I have two concerns about this movie.
Go ahead.
One is eventually because I fear the cross-pollination of essentially, at some point, the Guardians are going to run into characters from the Avengers. And it's going to bum me out because
the Harlem Globetrotters.
And the Harlem Globetrotters and the Addams Family. And I want, I like it. I kind of like that the Guardians of the Galaxy is its own franchise, and I kind of like it set apart and precious, and I don't know if I really want to see Star-Lord hanging out with Robert Downey Jr. being glum and smug or worried about his suit. I kind of like them separate. I'm also a little worried because would you say 11 billion?
It made $11 billion.
This $11 billion.
Yeah, the whole universe. Yeah.
This $11 billion universe is all of it is pointed towards one villain, one supervillain, and one, an Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos.
Yeah.
Like everything is leading to Thanos. So I'm wondering, like, A, what's after that, and B, honestly, he's a good super mega villain in the Marvel world, but it's like you're tying up all this thing, like everything is pointed to this one thing.
So there's like a couple more movies, so we're talking about almost 20 movies or something pointing towards
like that is a
one
lead
guy.
Yeah, and he's fine, but it's not like, oh my gosh, the quintessential Marvel villain of all the, it's not, I don't know. I question.
So you're worried.
I kind of question what expectations are going to be for
the next Avengers movie.
For the next Avengers movie, and just when we meet this guy, like I'm kind of curious as what it's going to be when it actually.
Hey, you guys, do you have my stones?
Yeah, it's not going to be. Can I wear this? Can I wear this gauntlet? Thanks, man. Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, so it's a.
You
little,
guys, give me the stones. You're fogging up my glasses.
Yeah.
Like that.
Maybe. I feel like we're being set up for something that's, you want it to be this amazing, huge, crazy payoff, and I just don't honestly know if it's realistic. So that's it. I want Guardians of the Galaxy to just be on their own, do their own thing, and whatever. That's cool. What Avengers are doing.
Right.
I want those, but at the same time, it's a gigantic soap opera, and like. Everybody fights and teams up with everybody in the universe in different time periods, and it's a gigantic soap opera, so it's inevitable. It's just the way comic books go. But those are my two concerns.
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy that I just realized looking at this as you're talking about that? Because it's all pointing towards Avengers: Infinity War, which comes out 363 days from today.
Not that you're counting.
1 year. Well, I'm looking at the date, and it's May 4th, 2018, and it's May 7th, so I only have to take 3 off. Anyway, but between now and the next podcast where we review Avengers: Infinity War, 4 Marvel movies are coming out in the next 12 months. If you want to count it, a year and some change, from May 5th to 2017 to May 4th, 2018, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, and then Avengers: Infinity War. That is just insane. Every time I try to step back and look at the whole Marvel universe, it just looks insane.
It is, and it's one of those things too where like the coolest, it's like for me, like in X-Files, the best episodes were like the kind of the one-offs, and then when it got to the big,
monster ones,
when it got to the huge story arc, especially towards the end of it, you're like, no, I don't really care about.
I don't care about Black Goo and cigarette smoking man.
What Cancer Man has to say, yeah. So I don't. And Spider-Man, I hope Spider-Man doesn't. I hope they don't put him. They probably will. Of course, they will put him in the Infinity Crazy.
Oh, he's in. Yeah, no, they're in everybody.
Everybody's in it.
So let's take a look at
because all these characters have like their own storylines that are amazing and like great villains, and not everything has to be about the end of times.
God, you know what? I'm looking at this, and it's funny because you used to hear back before Marvel did this. It's like, oh, you know what they should do? You'd hear this in a lot of comic book shops. Oh, you know what they should do? They should just do why don't they make this and that? Then they'd have them all team up.
That's the worst episode ever.
Yeah, no, they would just be spinning out these things. It's like no film franchise in the history of the time has done anything a quarter as ambitious as what you're talking about. So there's no way that's ever going to happen. And now we're looking at it. It's happening 1 year from today. Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Black Panther are all showing up in this one movie. It's just ludicrous.
And Wonder Woman, probably.
Probably. So,
Maybe.
well, with the Infinity Gauntlet, he can bend time and space and universes, so anything's possible. Don't be surprised if you see the Millennium Falcon rocketing by in the background. But anyway, all right, so what would you guys give this?
I'm about to sneeze. So you give a rating.
Bless
Excuse
you.
me. Sorry.
I think it's an 8.
Yeah, 8 from me.
Yep. Wow.
There you go.
We keep the streak alive. I
You
give
know
it
what?
an 8.
I actually, of rating everything the same. Before we move on to topic 2, I also want to talk about the music a little bit, because the music is so much of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Yes.
And
thank you.
It's so, I think it's so interesting, like how this movie uses music and how like Suicide Squad used music, and Suicide Squad picked these songs that were so on the nose.
Right.
And like, I think Guardians of the Galaxy just gets it right with the songs that they pick. Cause they both like, here's songs you love, here's songs but like Guardians of the Galaxies aren't like right on the nose. They're more about maybe, I don't know, the feeling and not the words so much.
Right.
And Suicide Squads are so like, get it? Devil?
That is true. No, that is true. And I think, though, that might be one of the things that was a little bit of a drawback, because when the original Guardians came out, watching space battles scored to yacht rock was just, the smooth rock of the 70s and early 80s was just so much ridiculous fun. And every single fight is that in this movie. And I think it was just, I was starting to like, it's like, oh, I see the trick. You've come up with this new delightful trick. You played it all through Guardians of the Galaxy, and it seems like they made a point to have every single action sequence scored, by a counterpoint of, slow yacht rock, which was really fun. But I don't know. I think they hit that joke so many times. Yeah, no, I get it. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think maybe by the end it was like, all right, I've seen this, and by the next movie, I'm a little worried that they're gonna. Well, you know what? I was gonna say I'm a little worried that they're gonna be trying to do this too much. But that is one of the things that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done, is they give you enough, but they do realize the point at which they've tried to trick too many times, and they try to change things up.
Shall we move on to topic 2?
That's right. Speaking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Hey, want more Dorking Out?
Yep.
You can visit our website at dorkingoutshow.com.
You can.
And you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter.
On Twitter.
Do you listen to us on iTunes?
Yep.
It's cool.
It's cool.
We won't tell anyone.
Nope.
Please, take a few minutes out of your busy day of pretending to work while you watch cat videos to give us a review on iTunes.
Cat videos!
For some reason, iTunes really cares about reviews, and it helps us attract more listeners, and you want us to have more listeners and be popular and cool, don't you?
Yep.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And now, on with the show.
Yeah. That brings us to topic 2, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and a larger topic that spun out of some deep dorking out I did.
Seriously deep dorking out.
Are franchise movies getting better? So yeah, this is one massive dork out. So let's just get this out of the way right at the beginning. If you're listening to this episode, we have a link in our show notes. We've created a little chart that you're going to want to look at for any of this to make sense.
You mean you.
That's right.
You.
This is a deeply, this is probably the dorkiest segment we have ever done on Dorking Out. I think it will be interesting.
And come on, looking at spreadsheets are cool, man.
That's right. It's a color-coded spreadsheet, but it says something, I think, very interesting and very shocking about Hollywood and the state of modern filmmaking. So just go check it out, and then, keep it handy as you're listening to this episode so you can kind of cycle through it. Once you dive into it, it's very... So yeah, this is one massive dork out. So while I was doing research for Guardians of the Galaxy, I had a suspicion and I've been trying to figure out a way to write about this or think about this, I think since for the last couple Marvel movies. Because it seemed as though Marvel movies were getting better and better and better. And it got me thinking about, this whole thing that Marvel is doing. They're making movies in a different way for a highly corporate company for ridiculous amounts of money. So you would think that all of the normal trappings of bad studio money-driven filmmaking would just crush this series. But instead, they seem to be getting better and better and better. And I just find that fascinating. I find it shocking. And I'm kind of wondering where this is going. And then I started looking at some of the other... Me too. Yeah, exactly. Then I started looking... I went to a site called The Numbers where they just have... different numbers for different, movies and all that kind of stuff, and looked at the biggest franchises. So I picked the franchises with 6 movies or more, and I was shocked to find that when you take the critic scores of all of the movies in these series, and the series were, just so we're all on the same page, the James Bond series, Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Star Trek series, X-Men series, Star Wars series, Harry Potter, Batman, Fast and Furious, Planet of the Apes, Superman, and the Middle-earth movies. I think those are all of the franchises with 6 movies or more.
What about the Thin Man?
I don't know how many are in the Thin Man, but they're not making them anymore. So they're out of reference.
I'm just saying, I think there's 6.
That's right. Okay, I might have missed. I missed the Thin Man. I am also not counting the Rocky movies. Anyway,
or Fast and the Furious.
No, Fast and Furious is in there.
Oh, it is there. Okay.
It is there.
And what's shocking is if you take the average of all these movies, the average critic rating, the critic score of all these movies, or each series, the last 3 movies for all of these series, except for Middle-earth, are better than the whole average of the series. So what that means is the most recent 3 movies of any of these are better than most of the other movies. So something is happening. Corporate filmmaking has this really bad reputation, and especially, people talk about sequelitis, and it's all just remakes and sequels and this and that. But if you look at it compared to the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, when we're looking at the modern era of sequel filmmaking, which I have to say starts with James Bond.
Right.
These movies are getting better. But almost perfectly across the board, and that just seems like such a counterintuitive.
So by starting by starting the franchise number at 6, though, are you eliminating things like Transformers?
I am not. Yeah.
Or Planet of the Apes.
No, Planet of the Apes is here.
Oh, it is here. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
Planet of the Apes is reboot, though. You count reboots as the same.
Yeah, and here's where things do get a little bit of fuzzy, because if you're going to count Batman, you have to count the reboots, and since that is a modern feature of filmmaking, that is one of the things that happens. James Bond was rebooted, Star Trek was rebooted, X-Men essentially was rebooted, Batman was, Planet of the Apes was twice, Superman was twice.
Right.
So yeah, I am counting it. So it is a little bit fuzzy, but I'm part of it is I was trying.
By the way, Smith's chart is amazing.
Thank you. Go to our Twitter page. Go to our Facebook page. This is why
he's nominated for Emmys.
Oh God, I wish I could get nominated for a chart like this. Oh, anyway,
nominated for a spreadsheet.
Best sell spreadsheet.
That's right. I got a Clippy Award, or a Spready Award for spreadsheet.
Ew.
That's another award.
That's
Chris.
a different award.
I think you've won that too, though.
I think they give that one out in Las Vegas, and you can watch it on Showtime. Anyway,
the X-Men, it works the reboot because Days of Future Past kind of melded it together, and then Star Trek, you had Star Trek Generations.
Well, yeah,
melded the two together.
And then you had the Star Trek 2009, which essentially kind of started things over in its own pocket thing. Some series that didn't get counted here were Die Hard, which I think are left. The Terminator movies, Lethal Weapon movies. There are movies that crapped out before 6, but I guess Transformers, which I don't know,
is what, hitting 5, right? This will be the
5.
5th.
Yeah, this is going to be the 5th one. So there are. What I'm saying is, once you get to a threshold of 6, in a kind
Friday
of
the 13th.
Yeah, I didn't. Friday 13th, I missed that one.
Oh, snap. Or Halloween.
I think we can live without them. But anyway, point is. Well, what's interesting is, and what I want to throw you guys by, and then I'll be quiet and kind of listen to what you have to say, is back in the 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and pretty much all of Hollywood history up until the mid-90s, studios would just churn out movies. Boom, 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 boom. If one of them was a big, massive hit, they would try to make another one, sometimes with the original filmmakers, oftentimes not with the original filmmakers, oftentimes not with the original intent. They would cut the budget, throw the movie out, hope to recoup some money.
Oh, yeah. No, it was a huge cash grab.
Yeah, it was a cash grab, but it was, and sequels did at that time have a really bad reputation, deservedly so in a lot of ways, as just cynical, crappy cash grabs. But now it's almost like the whole auteur idea of filmmaking has been melded with this big corporate film business, where if you can get a certain kind of filmmaker, like a Christopher Nolan or any of the people working for Marvel, that like to make a certain kind of movie, like Matt Reeves with Planet of the Apes and now with the DC Universe movies, they can make really top shelf stuff, and they can churn movies out that are getting better and better and better. One of the things that shocked me about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is after Iron Man, the first Iron Man, the next 4 movies are kind of the lowest rated movies of the whole Marvel universe.
I super love Captain America: The First Avenger. It is one of my favorites in the universe. I think it's so interesting that it's one of the lower rated ones. It is.
I agree.
I would much rather watch that one than Thor or Incredible Hulk or.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree, and other than Iron Man, it's the highest rated of those. But now, both of its sequels were much higher rated.
Yeah,
than the first one. Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange. I mean, Doctor Strange is almost as highly rated as the original Iron Man.
You only have one Hulk movie on here.
That's true. I'm thinking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think of this? I was kind of shocked that modern. I had this. We have this discussion that we're living in the golden age of, genre movies, science fiction, action, comic book movies. But looking at it here, it's like, wow, we really are, and the numbers don't lie.
No, we absolutely are, because these movies, all these movies that you've listed here, this used to be like hey, every couple of years we're going to throw you a bone. And
right.
here's your Superman movie, and then you don't get like jack squat until Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Basically. And now we're getting them. Well, you're going to get 4 Marvel movies this year,
right.
That sort of thing. Like, it is crazy. And they did. Sequels used to have a bad rap because there were so many crappy ones, because they were such a cynical, like, cash grab.
Right.
For like every like Godfather 2, you were getting, a lot of Friday the 13th 2, those
a lot
sort
of Romancing the Stones.
Yeah, Romancing the Stone, Jewel of the Nile. You're getting a lot of
Jewel of the Nile. That's what I meant.
You're getting a lot of Jewel of the Niles. You're getting a lot of, that sort of thing. You're getting it. So yeah, we're definitely in a better spot now, because the truth is they have to be better. We have so many options now.
Right.
It's like, the fact that it's Star Trek isn't going to be good enough. It needs to be a pretty good Star Trek movie, or I'm just going to see something else.
Right.
Or I'm not going to go to the movies at all, and I'm going to stay home and watch awesome TV because there's a lot of awesome TV.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And that's actually, I forgot to say, that is one of the things that originally got me thinking is Guardians of the Galaxy is the 15th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
By the time the James Bond series that was created and sustained through the old model of how you do a sequel, which is you make a movie, if it makes enough money, depending on how big the money is, you get to make another one, and that's it. You think one movie ahead, maximum. What Kevin Feige are doing is they're thinking 3 or 4, 5, 7 movies ahead. So by the time, so Guardians of the Galaxy is the 15th movie. By the time the James Bond series had hit the 15th movie, 25 years had passed, The Living Daylights. They had already made...
Which I love.
Train wrecks like A View to a Kill, even though I love Octopussy.
Smith said before we started recording that I would be super excited about this chart because it confirms for me.
That's right.
That Roger Moore is the worst James Bond.
That's right. Even though I really like Roger Moore, he made Live and Let Die, which is not really liked. Man with the Golden Gun, which almost killed the James Bond series. That was the 9th movie. Think about this. The 9th movie in the James Bond series was Man with the Golden Gun. The 9th movie in the Marvel series was Captain America Winter Soldier. So as the James Bond movies were going into the ground and desperate to make a good movie, the Marvel was entering its best age of movies. All the movies after, all but 2 of the movies after Winter Soldier are either rated 7 or above for critics, which is...
Roger Moore is Smith's favorite Bond. Who's your favorite Bond?
No, he is not!
So I'm going to defend Roger Moore here for a moment.
What?
I'm going to defend him.
I'm moving over on the couch.
Do it, David. I'm with you.
He was in The Saint. He was a kind of the product of the time, and it's not his fault that they were moving it in a direction that was... They're making it campy. And I don't think you can fault him for doing it because in the movies where he's being serious, in those Bond films, he's very good. And there's
By
still
the way,
things,
when I say,
The Spy Who Loved Me is a good film.
When I say Roger Moore's not my favorite, I'm not saying like, hey, I think Roger Moore is a horrible human being and a terrible person or whatever. Like, I'm saying like, I guess I didn't like the campy direction they were going in. Therefore, Roger Moore is not my favorite.
Like I think they took it off the rails, but I still think like The Spy Who Loved Me was good. They introduced some really good characters in it. What was the other? The one where they're skiing and they have the Lotus and the rocket shoots out of it.
Oh, that's all Spy Who Loved Me.
Okay, but what's the one after one? We're an all-time.
Moonraker?
All-time high was. All-time high was Octopussy,
For Your Eyes Only.
Actually.
Which, For Your Eyes Only, is one of the ones that, David, you and I have been sucked into more than a few times on, like, Spike TV or whatever.
Anything with, like, Jaws as a character and, like, you had the Schmier Spionem stuff going crazy in some of those Roger Moore ones. It really went... I mean... There is the one with the crazy, like the sheriff in New Orleans and like the very first Roger Moore.
Live and Let Die.
Yeah, but that's like, you have to blame that on Smokey and the Bandit. Like they were like, we have to have a crazy sheriff and he's going to do this ridiculous, jump.
You know what? If Smith had made his chart including 3 movies as a franchise, we could have had Smokey and the Bandit on here.
We could have. The problem is, if I cut it off at 3 movies, it would be a chart that would be 50 columns wide.
Right.
It would be impossible.
But yeah, and also like Roger Moore ended on a really bad note. He was already too old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what's his name got kind of a bum rap also.
Timothy Dalton
got a bum rap because
he totally did.
That second movie that he did was The
Living Daylights.
No.
License to Kill.
License to Kill was pretty forgettable.
Yes. I like The Living Daylights.
And he had a good start with Living Daylights, and they unfortunately it didn't go in a good direction.
Yeah.
Everybody just wanted Pierce Brosnan. That's what happened.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, everybody likes Roger Moore. It's like, he's the best part of Spice Girls movie.
I'll have to take your word for it. And not everybody has to like Roger Moore.
Well, that's interesting.
And now we're just talking about James Bond.
Yeah, now we are talking about James Bond. But the other thing I was looking is
now this has turned into the Bond cast.
One of the reasons I make charts like these or kind of think about these things is because I like to pretend to use numbers and data to make arguments about art, which I think you can to some extent, but it is fungible and people like what they like.
I think.
With that being said, hold on just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
These numbers definitively prove that the greatest franchise ever made was the Harry Potter franchise. That's right, not Star Wars, not Lord of the Rings. Harry Potter has the consistent level of quality.
You know why? Because Harry Potter had really good source material.
That's right. No,
that these other ones don't have.
Well, that's true, and it has me wondering about it. I should say
some of these other ones don't.
That is true. It has really good source material, but B, they were made from the beginning as we are going to make every single one of these books into a movie. So, they were doing stuff on, the first movie, the second movie, the third movie that paid off in the fifth, sixth, seventh. They were, the way they were casting them, the way they were shooting them, the way they were planning them was built to do this. And the level, I don't know if it is an accident that a studio said, we are making these as one big project rather than a series of movies.
It's funny because Potter, Bond, and the Lord of the Rings stuff, those are the only three of these franchises that are actually based on books.
Right.
Because X-Men, that's a comic book. Marvel, comic. Yeah. But even that, at least they've got a comic book where they know, it's been out there, people read them, they respond to them, they know, this is a good story that people respond to.
They know the characters before they even see the movie.
Something like, say, The Fast and the Furious, they don't have that.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting here?
Star Trek, they don't have that either.
No, they don't have that. But here's the thing. Here's what's really interesting, I thought, is it's these movies that are, or these, I don't even want to really call them movies, these projects that are conceived of as one big thing. For example, the three movies that are the highest rated as a whole, as a chunk, are Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. If he had stopped at
Return of the King
and not made the Hobbit movies,
which he should have.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, I misspoke. I said Harry Potter was bar none. What I should have said is Middle Earth is bar none. On average, these movies are the best. Anyway, the Lord of the Rings,
because of the first three.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings
Harry Potter's consistently good.
That's true. Lord of the Rings is the only three movies where every single entry is above an 8. But what I was going to say is, it looks like if you want to try to tease out any information from these is, if you A, have good source material to work with, B,
don't mess with the source material.
Don't mess with it too much. But C, you work on it as a multi-film project rather than we're just going to kick one out the door and see what happens. You get higher quality. For example, Planet of the Apes.
God, you love to talk about the planet.
Here's the thing. A, it was based on
this
a book.
This is all about trying to bully me into those movies.
That's right. A, the first movie was based on a French book. But if you look at the reboots, what those are based on are what worked and what didn't work in the previous movies. They threw out what didn't work. They kept what worked, and the level of quality jumped dramatically. If you look at the Star Trek movies, by the time they get to the J.J. Abrams movies, they have elements that they've identified really work. They throw out the elements that don't work. They keep the ones that do. And the Star Trek movies jump dramatically in their output.
Wait, on your list, though, it says here that Into Darkness is better than Beyond.
I'm
Just on the Rotten Tomatoes.
Now these are not the Rotten Tomatoes percentage scores. These are the average score that the critics themselves give the movie out of 1 out of 10.
Then critics are high
They
because
might be.
Into Darkness is not better than Beyond.
Right. But here's the thing: is even the James Bond movies, even if you look at if you look at Daniel Craig's movies, which I would argue were conceived of as we are starting over, we're rebooting the series, we're taking what works from the previous 20 movies, and we're going to focus on that. If you think of it like a multi-movie project, which I would be willing to say, the Broccoli family and Daniel Craig have done, his movies, on average, are better than all the other ones.
Right.
So, God, maybe I'm just talking myself into to agreeing with my own argument, but I'm thinking what it really takes is a movie that is willing, or a movie studio that's willing to write a check big enough to make at least 3 movies and hire a team that is going to produce and conceive of and work on a series of movies rather than just one individual movie.
I think that's a definite possibility, because if anything right now, original content is to be feared. Movies are expensive. Franchises are, there's already familiarity with the characters. There's a lot of it's going to be pretty crazy to get the green light to do a new movie, big budget, whatever, that isn't an already known franchise at this point. So
right.
I think because of just purely for box office, that's the way that they're moving these days, which makes it tougher for really, really, really original content to get out there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword to me, because I feel like it's a way of kind of ensuring and playing it safe with these known things.
Right.
And you're not getting, it's much harder now, unless you're just going to go straight to Netflix, to get backing for anything really original is going to have to be on TV now. It's not going to be at the box office.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing and I'm wondering, I agree with you when it comes to the box office, but my whole kind of conception for this, or reason to looking into this, is the quality is actually better. But for all of the praising that I have done of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think there is one drawback to this kind of filmmaking, in that it keeps you from getting it gets you a lot of good movies, or it gets you a lot of enjoyable but forgettable movies. But
yeah, they're playing it safe.
But it's not getting you a lot of great movies. For example, the Star Wars series was made under the old theory of how you do this. You just make a movie, you put it out, you try to make another one as good, and that is, they've got, of the 9 movies that have come out, 3 of them are 8 or above. Lord of the Rings, 50% of their movies are 8 and above. For Marvel, only 1 movie hits an 8. So I would say that Marvel is great at making good, enjoyable movies, but there's no Empire Strikes Back in the Marvel universe. There's no Dark Knight in the Marvel universe. There's no, Return of the King in the Marvel universe. There's no.
According to these critic scores, though.
That's true. That is true.
I think if you ask people,
yeah,
you might get, I think a lot of people might say that, maybe Captain America Winter Soldier is the Empire Strikes Back or something.
It would be, but I guess what I'm asking is, when you think about Winter Soldier compared to The Dark Knight or Empire Strikes Back, for you, which one's the better movie?
Oh, I would always go back to Empire Strikes Back.
Right. See, I think that's what I'm thinking. Like, I love them. I mean, this whole segment
and
is
it's
kind
not
of
because
based
The
on.
Dark Knight's not good. It is really good, but that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, no, I get it, but that's, and I agree. Is I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but if you ask me what's the greatest comic book movie ever made, Dark Knight. B, it's not even close.
Right.
There's nothing that comes within 10 miles that Marvel has done to what was done in that movie. But anyway, I don't know. I thought this was crazy interesting.
I think it is.
What's interesting to me is how Deadpool is 6.9, and like of all those movies, that movie made so much money. I mean, that is the highest rated R film ever. The highest February release ever. I mean, that broke just so many records. And has started a new. You wouldn't have Logan if it weren't for Deadpool. I mean, you've kind of started a new weird adult version of Marvel as a result of this.
Right. Yeah.
But yet, critically, it's not as high as other movies on other lists. It's not as high as like some of the X-Men stuff or, Logan, of course.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So, to check out this chart, go to our Twitter
very
page.
Colorful.
It's very colorful. Now that I'm looking at it, it's almost like Star Trek sickbay colors. So for you Star Trek
like
fans,
the intercom. You've got the intercom colors there on Next Generation going.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, go to the Dorking Out Twitter and look at our photos. Go to the Dorking Out Facebook page.
It'll also be on our blog.
It'll be on our blog. So take a look. You might enjoy it. Anyway.
Smith, good job on the chart.
Thank you very much.
That's some serious dorking out.
I want to see a chart on the box office.
Well, here's the thing. I was thinking about that. I would argue there are 3 ways to judge the quality of a movie, and I think this really would drive the artistically minded listeners and even friends crazy when I say this. There's essentially 3 methods. There's the critics, what they think. There's the audience and what they think. So I would say like the audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But then there's the straight ticket sales. I think.
Yeah, and I mean it not as a ranking of what's the best movie, as not for gauging the best movie, but just out of more of a data point, like a curiosity, like this was rated really highly by the critics, but panned.
You know what though?
Because and then this movie did not get good reviews, but it made bank.
But
it's giving something to the audience that the audience wants.
Not necessarily though, because we've talked about this before. At least David and I have. Like, we all like the first rebooted Star Trek. It's rated 8.2 here on your chart.
That's right.
And then Star Trek Into Darkness comes out and it makes a ton of money.
Right.
So much money. But most of us pretty disappointed by that. But it made it probably made more money.
Right.
Than any of these other movies. And then Star Trek Beyond comes out and it doesn't make as much money, but it's, relatively well received critic wise. And then people are like, oh, because Star Trek Beyond isn't good. And it's like, no, it's not because Star Trek Beyond isn't good. It's because Star Trek Into Darkness sucked.
Well,
so people are like, I don't want to pay to see Beyond because they think it's going to be Into Darkness.
It could be. You could be right. But one of the things I would say is, unfortunately, at least when it comes to the critics, the numbers don't lie. Star Trek Into Darkness is higher rated than Beyond, even though I disagree. B, box office is higher for Into Darkness. But what I would say is let's take Star Trek out of this and look at it. And, we have come to this before, and I'm wondering if we should examine it somehow, is there's a reason they keep making Terminator movies. Or I'm sorry, Transformer movies.
Right. Well, they make a lot of money.
They do make a lot of money. And so the question becomes, what is it that these movies that quote-unquote aren't good are giving to audiences that the audience wants? Why, we make all this fun of Michael Bay and deride him, and I'll be there all the livelong day to do that. But there's something he's giving audiences. There's something about his big, loud, dumb explosions that people love, where in other big, dumb, loud explosion movies are getting left in the dust, like Triple X, like if we're to believe that, audiences just don't care, they just like big dumb explosions, they'd be setting up the next XXX movie right now. But are they? No.
Yeah.
Because
also,
it's
like, what did Beyond run up against? I mean, that's a huge quotient too. Like,
yeah. So
people are not going to the movies as much as they used to.
Right.
And so you have to pick and choose now, and who knows what Marvel thing Beyond was running against or whatever. Like
Right.
that's a tough one. Like there's some steep competition for films and going to it's expensive to go to the movies now.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, I think that's
especially if you've got a kid.
Yeah.
So we've discovered.
And I think there is one thing that I think Star Trek fans have to contend with is a lot of people don't like movies that are that dorky. A lot of people don't like shows that are that dorky. I mean, I love Star Trek, but, it's, Star Trek V is an intensely geeky, dorky, campy movie.
It's the Star Trek audience is a smaller...
Right.
It's a smaller audience, and the real loyal Star Trek people have not really gotten behind the reboot. So
exactly,
boy, that's tough.
So yeah, they haven't gotten behind the reboots. Paramount can't, they can't crank out a, like I think like it was the television division of Paramount that cranked out Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. That you can't. Paramount has to swing at bigger properties that can deliver more, and I don't think Star Trek has it in it to deliver an audience. I mean, when you think of like Into Darkness against the Avengers or the Dark Knight or, most of these other franchises, it's, Star Trek is going to lose on a, if it was opening up against any of these other series, Star Trek would probably not do so well.
Paramount's been having some tough times. And it's funny, too. I remember when I was in tour guide training at Universal Studios, they used to say, like, if you couldn't remember the studio of a film, to say, when in doubt, say Paramount. Like, because they had such a lineup of, like, really good quality, famous films. And these last years have been pretty tough on them.
It's been brutal.
With the rise of Disney, has been really, really tough.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this deep geeked
this might be the dorkiest thing we've talked about.
Because honestly, if you're going to listen to this segment, it's probably too late to say that. You should be looking at the spreadsheet while you're listening, because
actually,
you've already turned off, haven't you? I can tell you anything right now. I can say like, hey, monkeys are cool, and you've already gone. Sorry.
Is that what you're doing? You're making fun of the listeners we have left in this episode?
Because
David Tracy.
you have to look at the spreadsheet.
That's right.
For this to even make any remote sense.
And now it's time for what might be some people's favorite part of the show. It's certainly one of my favorite parts of the show because it means we're almost finished. What we're dorking out about this week, and I'm just going to go first. I'm just going to jump right in. Smith, did you know that the MTV Movie Awards are now the MTV Movie and TV Awards?
I did not.
I did not know this either because I don't watch MTV, but that's because I have like an parental lock on my TV, and it doesn't let me watch shows or networks where I'm too old to be watching that. So I didn't know it was a thing, but I saw a story about it today, and I think it's so interesting that they actually broke up the categories. Like, they're not by gender. Like, It's just like best actor, and it's everyone.
Okay.
I think that's really cool.
I think that is cool. First off, I have several feelings.
Okay.
First, let's give ourselves a pat on the back. Because the Dorking Out Awards combine television and movies.
True.
We were ahead of the curve. MTV is stealing from us. So there's that. Second, here's the thing. I do respect combining the male and female categories, but I feel like there is something like in Oscars or Emmys or Golden Globes or whatever where you're honoring kind of the heavy hitters in each category. I don't want to say each gender, but, that's kind of what I mean, because the roles that are given to men and women are so, so different and disparate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, men hardly ever play a hooker with a heart of gold.
Exactly. That's right.
And now this year's award for best performance of an actress playing a hooker with a heart of gold is...
Exactly. So I'm wondering if this is just going to turn into who's the cutest guy, and let's give him the award.
That's kind of what the MTV awards are anyway, aren't they?
It is, but I have a suspicion that the movers and shakers behind this are thinking that they're kind of leaning it, being more progressive and looking to the future and all that stuff. And what it's going to turn into is MTV Movie Awards So Male. In like 3 or 4 years, it's just going to be dude.
Won.
What was that?
Emma Watson won for Best Actor.
For what?
For Beauty and the Beast.
That just came out! Oh my God. All right, you know what?
Honestly, all these awards are really stupid. I just think it's interesting that they're doing it that way. Like, I don't care about the MTV Awards. I don't care about, like, the Teen Choice Awards, which I always find really weird because they'll nominate, like, movies that are rated R.
Yeah.
And I was like, they can't even see these movies in theory.
Yeah.
Well, stuff. It's all just silly stuff to, like, make actors feel awesome.
So here's what I did. Here's the mistake that I made. Is I applied some logic and thought.
Not your award, by the way, is not stupid.
No, I'll take that. I'll admit it. Don't get me into the national Emmy Awards are messed up, but the local Emmy Awards are actually legitimate.
They're legit. They're hardcore.
They actually are. I can actually go into how they give them, and the further away you get from the national awards, the further away you get from like Oscar, the whole Oscar baiting run and the whole.
Aren't you stoked that Bryan Cranston is never nominated in your category?
Yes, because then I would never have had a chance. It would have been nice to be beaten by Bryan Cranston, but it's anyway. Well, yeah, I'm jokingly. I'll say this seriously, but I was joking. I shouldn't have applied so much serious thought to the MTV Movie Awards, since it essentially is the Teen Choice Awards with probably more boobs.
Maybe.
But, yeah, I think this is an interesting idea. I don't know if I would combine the male and female categories for acting for an honor that you would actually want to mean more. But the idea of, and we talked about this a couple months ago with our Oscar awards, that, looking at how these categories are broken down, because, if you were doing something like, who can run the fastest marathon or whatever, it'd be kind of unfair to put the genders together, but just because of height. But in terms of acting ability, both genders come to the table with the same tools and could do. You know what? I think that's what it is. I think this goes back to the discussion we had about Oscars, which is if you're good enough to get nominated, that you should get an award. If you're
you're already a winner.
Yeah, you've already proven your badassness against all the other actors in all the other movies of that year. So just give them the award. That's what it is. This is taking the the number of winners from 2 in a year down to 1 in a year, and I think that's just bogus.
Well, you already know these awards are pretty silly when you hear the Emma Watson wins for Beauty and the Beast, because I think even people who really like that movie would probably argue that she's not super great in it.
I think she's fine, but she's,
Yeah, but she's fine.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, all right.
Honestly, I think the MTV Movie Awards gave a lot of stuff to Twilight movies too. So there you go.
Exactly. So the joke's on us for trying to take this seriously. That's the problem. It's not their fault.
Well, I don't
It's
think
our
we
fault.
take it seriously. I just think it's interesting that I wanted to note that I think it's interesting that they're not dividing it up by gender.
Right.
What's your
All right.
headline or your thing that you're dorking out about?
Well, I mean, I have already done some serious dorking out about that we talked about in segment 2.
Yes.
Making that
Do you
chart.
have any energy left for any kind of other dorking out?
I just have a little bit of energy left for this kind of surprising news that came out this week, which is they are making a sequel to the Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt sci-fi movie from a couple years ago, Edge of Tomorrow.
Which I haven't seen, but heard was kind of good. Yeah,
It's actually good. Like, no, it really is good. What was weird is it was not marketed that well, and the tagline has essentially become the name of the movie. Officially, it's called Edge of Tomorrow, and it's about a futuristic soldier who can die and become reborn, kind of like in a video game. So he's fighting this war and going back and forth through time every time he dies. Anyway, the tagline of the movie was "Live, Die, Repeat," to kind of get you the idea. And a couple months, in the weeks after the movie came out, new posters would come out. When it came out on video, when it came out on digital streaming, the name of the movie, Edge of Tomorrow, would shrink, and the tagline, Live, Die, Repeat, would grow. Because I think, supposedly
Edge of Tomorrow is such a generic...
Exactly.
Like, it's honestly, it sounds like a soap opera name.
Exactly.
Edge, today on Edge of Tomorrow.
That's right. And I think the marketers realized that after the movie had come out. So they were trying to communicate, this is what the movie's about. Live, die, repeat. So anyway, the sequel is going to be called Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat.
Well, that's good.
It's good. It's supposedly based on a idea by Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie. Chris McQuarrie is a fantastic screenwriter. I think he got his big break with Usual Suspects, and
that's right.
He's written a couple of Tom Cruise movies.
Did he do The Way of the Gun too? He did that one.
He might have. I'm not sure. He did Valkyrie. He directed the last Mission Impossible. He's directing the new Mission Impossible. So supposedly everybody's coming back for this movie. It could be interesting. What's interesting is Doug Liman, who is he directed the first one. He directed Mr. and Mrs. Smith, directed the first Bourne movie, even though everybody wants to pretend Paul Greengrass is the rising and setting sun of that franchise. Doug Liman started that franchise. Anyway, he says that he was quoted as saying, "We have an amazing story. It's incredible, way better than the first film."
Dang.
But then he also says, and obviously I love the first film, but we're very excited about it. Emily Blunt's coming back. So they're apparently they've gotten some screenwriters. They're writing it out, and then they're just looking for a time to shoot it. But I'm very excited because that is one of the things that I think is Tom Cruise off screen has a very bad or has a damaged reputation in various ways.
Right.
But on screen, if you just look at the quality of his movies, he is maybe one of the actors I respect most in terms of what he tries to do. He hasn't just jumped on, he's done like one franchise. He's tried to do a lot of different interesting things.
Yeah, we talked about this last week when Will Wilkins was on, and we were talking about summer movies, and I think we were all talking about how The Mummy probably isn't going to do very well, but that Tom Cruise usually picks really interesting projects, attaches himself to really good directors and writers, and he might surprise you. So
yeah, exactly. But one project that he passed on apparently that would have transformed himself, and I really, given that we've talked what we've talked, all the Marvel talk that we've done in this. Do you know the Marvel role that he passed on about 10 years ago?
Was it Iron Man?
Tony Stark. That's right. He was
I'm
supposed
so glad
to be.
he passed.
Can you imagine? Actually, you know what? That's the thing. Is given his wise ass, self-satisfied, cocky vibe, I could see Tom Cruise being.
Well, it's not that I can't see him playing it. It's just that I like Robert Downey Jr. more.
That's true. All. That's true. Because a lot of times you hear people pass on roles and someone else has gone on to do the role and you think, I can't even imagine that person being in the role. But this one, yeah, I could imagine Tom Cruise doing that. And I can imagine him hitting it out of the park almost as much as Robert Downey Jr., but not quite. Robert Downey Jr.
God, you love Tom Cruise. Get a room.
Well, I can't decide if I want to make a closet joke. I can't decide if I want to just walk past it. You know what? I'm just going to walk past it.
Okay.
But anyway, so Sonia Mansfield, is there anything else that you would like to say before we end the show?
No, I'll just say goodbye.
Bye! Wait a minute. We were just kidding. If you would like to see your topic on the show, go to iTunes right now, give us a 5-star rating and review, and within the body of that review, tell us the topic that you want us to talk about. We promise to do it, even if we think the topic is horrible and you're a horrible person for doing it. We will discuss the topic.
Come on, you guys. This is your chance to have Smith share a really embarrassing story about himself.
This is your chance to make us talk about something that we clearly do not want to talk about. Actually, you know what? I've kind of run this joke into the ground. You know what? There's probably something that we would love to talk about. Though we're just waiting for you to tell us what you really want us to hit. So, right now, go to iTunes, 5-star rating, give us a review, tell us the topic in the review you want us to do, and we will do it. Now, Sonia.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you would like to say before we say goodbye?
Give us a review, you guys. God. And goodbye.
One more thing. Just kidding. Bye!
The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about the Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.